Okay, good afternoon and welcome to a new week of Shulchan Aruch Yomi Simon Reishvav Table Enabled is the name I give this show. It's a show, it's not just a share. With me, it's a show. Let's get started. Reishvav 206, Vav Sifim, 6 halachas today. Aleph, Berach al Peros Ha'ilan, Bori Preadama Yatza. If you made a Bori Preadama on a fruit, that real bracha is Bori Preadama Yotze B'diavad because ha'etz, trees also come from the ground. Avalim Berach al Preadama, Bori Preadama. However, if you had potato or something like that, Bori Preadama, you had a tomato, a cucumber, and you made Bori Preadama, Lo Yatza, because things that come from the ground and you make a Bori Preadama don't come from trees. You don't know whether it's correct bracha as eitz or adam. The best bracha, better than making shahakal, but at least this is a more specific bracha. The more specific, we're going to learn. I'm going to explain more today in Ian with Ben Sion, really what the nature of Berachas Hanenin really is. It's called Berachas Hanenin, brachas of hana, of benefit, right? Because food is one of the principal things that people enjoy in this world. The more specific, the better. I'll explain the concept of bracha levatala. It could even be d'oraisa, even to lean on after the shir. It's really a monumental shir. Explains one of the Aseret Hadibros. You're really not going to want to miss it. So, alakol, imam shahakol yatsa afila pasviyayin. But the Eved, if you said a shahakol on anything, even on bread, even on wine, which have very specific brachos, nonetheless, the halacha is your yotze with the shahakol. Boring the fashos are not yotze necessarily for things. We'll learn more about that for, let's say, a main shalos when you're chayav. Boring the fashos does not remove the requirement. However, a shahakol is good. Shahakol or yotze b'diavad with that. And if you don't know the bracha to make shahakol. Beis hayula fun of pri adama or pri ha'etz. You have a bori pri adama before you and a bori pri ha'etz. You have a banana. You have an apple. Berach al pri adama v'niskav and liftor as pri ha'etz. You made a bracha on the banana, which is adama, and you had in mind to exempt the apple, yotze, your yotze. Because again, your bari pri adama is sufficient for bari pri. Now, if you didn't have kavana, we don't assume you had kavana for the banana also. But since you had kavana, we're going to learn that within one bracha at least, right? If I say shahakal, right, on some whiskey or something like that, and I also have a piece of steak in front of me, so that shahakal, my whiskey could exempt the steak also. It's the same bracha as long, according to the poskim, as long as it's either on the table or you had it specifically in mind, then it could exempt it. Here also, even if it's not the exact same bracha, you could exempt it. Now, this is not the opinion of all the poskim, so this is not a lechatchila thing to do. Some poskim say it doesn't work because it's two different brachas. It's supposed to be the case, though, let's say whiskey and and rib steak, where it's the same bracha. So, which is a klei according to all poskim. So this is a safes machlokes. So, but the if you did it, it's okay. It's better not to do it. Gimel. When you make the bracha, you should eat the food immediately. Haga, Yoster Mekdei Dibor, the Ramah says, you shouldn't wait more time says to say Shalom Alecha Rabbi, which is Tok Kedei Dibor, which is about 2 or 3 seconds. You should eat the food immediately. However, if you do not eat the food immediately and you don't say a word you don't chatter, you don't say a stam idle word, so b'diavad your bracha lasts until you have a hezach hadas, until forget about the bracha. If you forget the bracha, you could always eat without making a bracha. You could rely on the bracha you made, as opposed to if you said a word that wasn't related to the food, right? If you said a bori pre'ez and then you said to someone, "Bring me a knife," it's not a hefsek. We're going to learn because it's part of the eating, and maybe even the chachila you're allowed to say that. But if you say bori pre'ez, then you say, Mac McClung won the. By the way, Mac McClung won the slam dunk championship last night, in the NBA All Star game. So NBA All Star weekend. So that's probably a half sec. Even though you like Mac McClung and you think he should be the star of the NBA, the franchise, next face of the NBA. The guy's in the G League. He won the dunk contest. If you don't know what the dunk contest is, you don't know what the NBA is. I'm sorry to hear that, but go out. There's a world out there. Tune in. NBA is the second most popular sport. Basketball is the second most popular sport in the world. behind soccer, and the greatest basketball players play in the NBA. So check it out. If you never heard of it, ask your person and your chavrusa about it. I'm sure your chavrusa heard it, or chavra the chavra islay. Your friend's friend heard about it. um, you know what a slam dunk is? You're probably like a Jewish guy who can't dunk. So very few Jewish people that can dunk. I always wanted to dunk. I wish I could dunk. It was an aspiration I had when I was younger. One time I actually grabbed the rim, and I was able to pull myself up and like sit on the rim, but I never could dunk a basketball, even a tennis ball. And I'm like, man, I wish I could dunk a basketball. I had pretty good jumping ability, I had pretty good hops back in the day. Now I try to touch the rim, not even close to the backboard. I think I can touch, but um, Yosef Dibor. So if you talk that and then you say, talk about the dunk contest, so that is a hefsek. You have to make a new bracha. Also, you should make the bracha audible. You should be able to hear it. Just like by Kriya Shema. Your yotze, as long as you enunciate, as long as your lips move, then you enunciated the words. Just like Birkas Hamazon, you can say brachas in any language, even the Arom. Just like we learned by Kriya Shema, you shouldn't say Kriya Shema while you're naked. You have to make sure you're naked, because otherwise you violate an isser potentially in the Torah, right? Of dvar larira b'cha ervas davar. Like Mar Darshan, the ervas davar, ervas dibur saying Kriya Shema while you're exposed to erva. Now it could be your own erva or a woman's erva. It's physical there. A man, he can't say bracha when he's naked. Al isha, a woman who's naked, Yoshes Banei Shamata Tuchos Bakar, because she's sitting on the ground to the point where her, her vulva, her complete vulva, is completely not exposed. It's pressed against the ground. The Mishnah in Chalas says she could do this. Even if he's not naked, this is halach. You have to wear a yarmulke, and also even if you're wearing, let's say clothes that are very, that are not pressed against your body, you're wearing, let's say, a towel or something like that around you, and the towel is not firmly against your waist. So even though people can't see, your private parts or even your stomach, nonetheless, since your heart could see down to your ervas, that's a problem either abana. Again, you wouldn't make a new bracha in this case. Same thing if you made a bracha when you were wearing a yarmulke, because wearing a yarmulke when you make a bracha, I don't even think is an issue in the rabbanan. It's a good thing to do it. I mean, take cover of brachos, but again, first of all, you don't have to wear a yarmulke at all in general. And even when you make brachos, you probably don't have to wear one. The post are machmer when you go into a shul, when you make a bracha, you should wear one. There's more reason to say you should wear one over there. But again, you wouldn't take a new bracha if you didn't. Dalet kol davar shemavarech alav la'achol la'ariach. Anything you're making a bracha for eating. We're going to learn also when you smell, so things that smell good, you make a bracha. You should hold it in your right hand. If you're a lefty, you hold it in your left hand, because it gives primacy to the bracha to show your strong hands, or if you're a lefty, your left hand, that is, if you're focusing on what you're about to make a bracha on. That's part of the experience to make a bracha. I'm going to explain this more in Yud Ben Sion. The bracha is preparatory to help you enjoy, right? You can't enjoy something unless you focus on it. The bracha takes a step back. Let me focus on what I'm about to eat, right? You enjoy something more when you focus on it. You don't make a bracha on food or drink until they actually bring it in front of you. If someone says, I'm going to bring you your cocktail, the cocktail that you ordered, your margarita, he didn't bring it yet. You shouldn't make a bracha, even though you hear his footsteps coming. You should wait till he comes. If you made the bracha before you actually brought it to, you have to make a new bracha. Now, according to the Mishnah Berurah, he says that in this case, where there's nothing in front of you, even though you hear the footsteps of the guy coming, it's a bracha levatala, and you have to make a new bracha when the margarita comes, as opposed to, we'll see in halacha vav, where you're standing in front of a stream of water and you make a bracha, even though by the time you drink the water that was in front of you, obviously you're not going to be drinking. You're drinking water that was further ahead upstream. Um, there, it's all one body of water. So therefore, technically, what's in front of you is the whole stream of water. However, here, nothing's in front of you. So therefore, even if you're Machavan and you know the margarita is coming, you hear the footsteps, you're not Yossi, it has to be in front of you. Let's say you had fruits, you had some apples in front of you. And then they brought you didn't know that you ate 2 apples, and you didn't know they brought you another 3 apples. Besides apples, they also brought you some pears. It's the same bracha. They're both very praise. You don't have to make a bracha. Now, this is a machlokas about the pears. The apples, everyone seems to agree on. However, let's say it's a minacher, it's a different type of fruit. So, again, you didn't have kavana, you didn't have in mind for the pears. You only knew about the apples, and you didn't even know they're going to bring you more. But since you made a bracha on apples, they bring you the same apples. That everyone says you can rely on. However, it's a machlokas, can you rely on it for the pears? But most people say that if it is it's a fruit, that you could. However, the poskim say that if it's something which is a totally different type of food, for example, one's a food, one's a drink, or one is, let's say one is a cookie and one is rice, where different types of brachas. So maybe you couldn't rely on it. However, the Ramah says it's best to have in mind whenever you make a bracha. I'm having in mind this bracha on the apples. Whatever they bring me that's bari pi'ez, I'll be yossi with. In which case, even if it's something, right, which is, let's say, a shahakal you made on whiskey, and then they brought you some rib steak, not whiskey. They bring us some, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think whiskey goes so good with rib steak. If you want to have something good with rib steak, you should drink Merlot wine, dry Merlot wine. That goes good with rib steak. Cabernet Sauvignon with lamb chops. Again, you have to cook it medium rare. You always match the color of the liquid with the food you're going to eat when it comes to wines. But obviously, wines is a bar paraguffin, so it's not a good example. But let's say you're drinking for some reason at a kiddush, and they had some type of meat, let's say pastrami or something like that, and you had some, Glenlivet or something like that, some bad stuff. I don't know. You made a bracha on the Glenlivet. If you had in mind for the pastrami or yotze, even though it wasn't on the table, even though you didn't specifically think about it, but you had in mind the pater with your shackle, anything that's bracha of shackle. And that technically works, according to most poskim, that technically works, that if you have in mind. And also they mentioned, even if you don't have in mind, if it's on the table, right, you had hot pastrami on the same table as your Glenlivet, you made the bracha on the Glenlivet, and you had hot pastrami, so it would work, even though you didn't have in mind for it. So you could always fix these problems, just have in mind for anything that has a bracha. Or even if you didn't have in mind, it's on the table, technically we paskin your yotze with your original bracha. You don't have to make a new bracha. I don't believe, this is the accepted halacha opinion. I believe the halacha is very different than this, and I will tell you my opinion, Ian, to lean on. More brachas the better, and I'll tell you why I believe more brachas the better. Ian, to lean on. Vav, natal biyado pri la'achlo, uberech alav. You took a fruit to eat, and you made a bracha. V'nafal miyado v'nevar al nemas. It got lost. I don't know where you're on. I don't know, the Grand Canyon or something like that, and then you dropped the apple in the Grand Canyon. Or it became disgusting. I don't know. It fell in mud. You're not going to eat it anymore. If you eat mud, an apple within mud, I think you're over Baal Tashaksu, which is doing something disgusting. You might be over an Daraisa. So you can't eat it. Even though there's plenty of apples on the table, and the one you made a bracha on fell in the mud, you can't eat that apple because Baal Tashaksu. It's disgusting. So your bracha, you had kavana on that apple. So even though you had kavana to be most of the other apples, it doesn't make a difference after they go to bracha. Haga rakshalo yadaito olav la'achlo. You didn't have in mind to eat that. But Sarach Lomar, and when you make a bracha vatala, you have to say Baruch Shem Kol Malchusol Ilam Ve'ed. Al Shahozi Shem Shemay Vatala. There's a special halacha when you make a bracha vatala. Now I don't know if this applies to, let's say you're saying Berachos Kriya Shema in the morning, and you realize, oh, I already said Berachos Kriya Shema at home, and now I'm in the shul, I'm saying Berachos Kriya Shema again. I don't think you say Baruch Shem Kol Malchusol Ilam Ve'ed. I think it's a unique halacha. We say Baruch Shem Kol Malchusol very infrequently. And after Shema, you say it. And they used to say in the Beis HaMikdash, when they started Shem Hashem Mavorach, in the Beis HaMikdash, right, they would say that. So it's a very unique utterance, and I'll explain why it's so unique and why it's special to say it over here. He didn't say Elokeinu, Yisayim V'Yomar Lamdeinu Kugecha. Then it's not really Bracha Vatala, because you could finish it off Lamdeinu Kugecha, which is a pasuk. She'enir Kekar, a pasuk. Ve'enkab Moti Shem Shema Vatala, because saying a pasuk, you're only allowed to say psukim. So therefore, this is something that works in all brachos. Like in Shemona Esrei, and you realize that you don't need to say Shemona Esrei or whatever. You already said Shemona Esrei. So you say Baruch Atah Hashem Ladinu Kukecha, and it saves you. Aval ha'omed al amas hamayim. Let's say you're standing by a stream of water. Mevarach v'shosa al pi shamayim sheshosa lo yilfanav k'shavirech. Right? You want to drink from the stream of water. So similar to a water fountain, right? A water fountain, right? So you have to press the water fountain, the button to let the water start flowing. When you're making the bracha, the water is right in front of you, is going to fall into the sink. You're not actually going to drink it. Nonetheless, since it's one stream of water, that was your mind to do that, and the water, it's one stream flowing of water. So even though the actual water you're going to drink is gone by the time you finish your bracha, nonetheless, it's one stream of water, so it's in front of you. So you're making it on the right thing, as opposed to what we said before, when a waiter is bringing something to you, you make the bracha before he comes, before you see the food, that even though you intended for that food, since it's not in front of you at all, so therefore it's a bracha v'atala. Hagav, I am the command Simon Reish Tet, Sif Aleph, in Berach B'Tos Madina. We'll learn later on this week, Simon Reish Tet. If you made a bracha by mistake, right, what do you do? Right, what do you do? Do you make a new bracha? Can you change the bracha? Right? We started talking about this at the beginning. Hadama, Patras, Ha'etz, and Shahakal, Patras, everything. We'll talk more about this in Simon Reish Tet. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian to lean on, where I lay down the framework for the basis of the idea behind Berachas Hanenin. Why is it called Berachas Hanenin? What are we doing when we have Berachas Hanenin? Why is it different than any other bracha? It's a very unique type of thing. Why you say Baruch Shem Kol Lamed. And a lot of poskim say, making a bracha levatala and Berachas Hanenin, you're violating the one of the Aseres Adibros, L'sisa Shem Al Kechel Hashav, making a false shvua. When you make a bracha levatala, seemingly only by brachas Hanenin, and hard to understand is Berachas Hanenin is only the Rabbanon. How can you violate the Daraisa? Talk about all these things. Ian to lean on. Very fundamental shir coming up next.